The air inside the alien auction hall was heavy with strange scents. Glowing lanterns floated above the crowd, casting soft colors over hundreds of faces. Some faces had scales, some had fur, others had smooth metal masks. All eyes were fixed. On the central stage, Daniel sat on the cold floor inside a cage made of some crystal-like bars. He could see the entire hall from where he was. But what worried him most was the way the crowd kept looking at him. Not with curiosity, but with hunger. He had been captured 3 days ago when his small cargo ship was pulled out of warp by a pirate vessel. The pirates never explained what they wanted. They only kept saying he was special stock. Now he was beginning to understand why they said it like that. The auctioneer, a tall alien with 4 arms and a voice that echoed like metal bells, stepped onto the stage. Behind him floated a table holding a small container filled with a glowing golden liquid. The crowd murmured and leaned closer. Ladies and lords of the galaxy. The auctioneer began. Today, we present something beyond price. A treasure that has been spoken of in whispers. A substance so rare that empires fall and rise over. It human male nectar. The crowd gasped. Daniel frowned. He had no idea what that was, but the way they reacted made his skin crawl. The auctioneer waved a hand toward Daniel's cage, and here, he said, with a wide smile, is the source. More murmurs. Some alien women covered their mouths in shock. Some men looked at him like a weapon they wanted to own. Daniel's stomach tightened. The auctioneer continued. For centuries, humans have been considered a fragile species, but they're males. Carry a gift unlike any other. Only in them can the nectar form a living treasure of genetic and chemical perfection. The last known source in the galaxy, Daniel gripped the bars. Hey, what the hell are you talking about? He shouted, but no one seemed to care about his voice. The bidding began. Numbers Daniel couldn't understand were shouted from every corner. The alien bidders waved strange glowing sticks to signal their offers. The numbers climbed higher and higher until they became meaningless. But the auctioneer raised a hand. No, my friends, he said. The source is not for sale. The nectar will be harvested under the control of Her Majesty herself, and then sold to those with the means to afford it. Daniel froze. So he wasn't even being sold. He was being kept, used, and drained for whatever this nectar was. The auctioneer's words turned softer, more dangerous. You all know the legends. A single drop can heal sickness, extend life, and awaken fertility in dying bloodlines. That is why the value is beyond measure. Daniel's heart pounded. He didn't like where this was going. The Queen's herald entered, wearing golden armor that shimmered in the light. She walked past the crowd and stopped in front of Daniel's cage. Her eyes scanned him from head to toe. She didn't speak to him. She didn't smile. She only nodded to the auctioneer. Her Majesty claims him, the auctioneer announced. The rest of you may prepare your fortunes for the first extraction sale. 2 guards opened Daniel's cage and pulled him to his feet. Their grip was like iron. He tried to pull away. But the moment he moved, one of them pressed a cold weapon to his side. Walk, one guard hissed. Daniel looked around at the crowd. Dozens of eyes followed him, but not a single one showed pity. Instead, he saw envy, greed, and hunger. It was the same look predators give to fresh prey. As they led him through the massive hall, he noticed smaller cages lining the walls, filled with other rare beings, creatures with silver wings, glowing eyes, or bodies made of water. Most looked weak, their eyes empty. He passed a mirror-like panel and caught his reflection, his hair messy, his face pale, and his clothes torn. From the capture, he looked like one of the slaves, but something in his gut told him he was in even more danger than they were. When they reached the far side of the hall, an enormous golden door opened with a hiss. Beyond it lay a hallway lined with purple banners marked with a single symbol, a crown, above a drop of liquid. The guards pushed him forward. the sound of the auction still echoing behind them. But now the voices were replaced by the thud of his boots and the slow, deliberate steps of the guards. Daniel didn't know where they were taking him. But deep inside, he felt one thing clearly. Whatever human male Nectar was, it wasn't going to end well for him, and he needed to find a way out before. They found a way in. Daniel was led through the long hallway, the golden doors shutting behind him with a heavy sound that echoed like the closing of a prison gate. The air inside was warmer, carrying a faint, sweet smell. Strange lights glowed in the walls, making the floor shine under his feet. The guards kept a firm grip on his arms, their tall bodies moving in perfect step as if they were part of the same machine at the end of the hall. A wide chamber opened, filled with alien servants standing in neat rows, their eyes fixed on him. None smiled, none whispered. They simply stared, as if measuring his worth. One of them, wearing a silver robe, stepped forward and spoke in a soft but sharp voice. "The human is to be presented to Her Majesty. Prepare him." Before Daniel could speak, the guards handed him over to two servants who pulled him toward a smaller side room. Inside, he was forced to sit while alien hands worked over him. His torn clothes were stripped away and replaced with a robe of thin fabric that clung to his skin. It felt like wearing water. A servant began brushing his hair with a comb that hummed with tiny vibrations. Another wiped his face with a warm cloth. Daniel wanted to push them away, but the guards stood nearby, watching closely, their weapons resting in their hands. When they were done, the silver-robed servant returned. "You will speak only when spoken to," she warned, her eyes like polished stones. "You will kneel in Her Majesty's presence. You will not refuse her touch." Daniel clenched his jaw, but said nothing. They led him out into another grand hall, taller than any building he had ever seen. The ceiling disappeared into shadows. Gold and purple banners hung from above, and at the far end, on a raised platform, sat the Queen. She was unlike any alien he had seen so far. Her height alone was daunting. Her skin shimmered with deep blue and silver patterns, and her eyes seemed to glow softly, as if they held light from some other world. She did not wear a crown, yet everyone in the room bowed low at the sight of her. Daniel was pushed forward until he stood at the base of the platform. The Queen leaned forward slightly, studying him as if he were some rare jewel. "So," she said, her voice rich and slow, "the last true source has been brought to me. I'm not a source." Daniel said sharply, "I'm a person." The hall went silent. Some servants glanced at each other nervously. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons, but the Queen only smiled faintly. "In my realm, human, a person can also be a treasure." He swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. "What is this nectar you keep talking about?" The Queen rested her chin on one hand. "It is life. It is power. It is the essence your body will produce for me." Her tone was calm, but her eyes held something that made him uneasy. "With it, I can secure my throne for centuries. Perhaps longer." Daniel shook his head. "You think I'll just let you take it?" Her smile widened, almost amused. "You have no choice. You belong to me now, and soon. You will understand your purpose." She gestured with one elegant hand, and the guards began to pull him away as they dragged him toward another set of doors. Daniel caught sight of a young alien woman standing among the servants. She was smaller than the others, her eyes not fixed on him with greed, but with something closer to worry. Their eyes met for only a moment. But in that moment, she gave the faintest shake of her head, as if warning him. He was taken through winding corridors until they reached a chamber filled with a faint humming sound. The walls were lined with silver machines, and the air smelled faintly of metal and flowers. In the center stood a large seat with strange straps and tubes. One of the guards said something in their language, and the machines began to come alive with lights. Daniel backed away. "You're not strapping me into that," he said, his voice low but firm. The guards moved closer, their heavy steps echoing. And Daniel realized this was the beginning of whatever preparation the queen had planned. He took a step back toward the door, only to find it locked. The silver-robed servant entered the chamber, her expression unreadable. "You will cooperate," she said coldly. "Resistance will only cause pain. And the queen does not like damaged property." Daniel's jaw tightened. The word property twisting in his chest like a knife. He forced himself to stay calm, his eyes scanning the room for any way out. The humming of the machines grew louder, the tubes shifting as if ready to wrap around him, somewhere deep. Inside, he knew that if he let them proceed, if he sat in that chair, the queen's plan would move forward. And escape would become almost impossible. He just needed one chance, one distraction to make his move, and he would take it, no matter the risk. Daniel stood frozen as the silver-robed servant stepped aside, allowing a group of figures in white and gold uniforms to enter. Their long fingers carried strange tools that glowed at the tips. They didn't walk like soldiers, but like people who had done this many times before, moving with calm, careful precision. One of them, an older alien with pale, glass-like eyes, looked Daniel over as if studying a rare creature in a museum. "Yes," he murmured to the others, "he is unspoiled." Daniel's fists tightened. "I'm not an animal," he said sharply. But his voice only made a few of them tilt their heads in curiosity. The older alien gestured toward the chair with the straps. "Place him there," he ordered. 2 guards moved instantly. Grabbing Daniel's arms, he tried to pull free, twisting his body, but they were too strong. They forced him down into the seat. The cold material pressed against his back, and the straps tightened around his wrists and ankles. The humming of the machines grew louder, lights shifting from soft blue to deep red. A thin arm of metal lowered from above, ending in a ring of small needles. Daniel's heart began to pound in his ears. "What are you doing?" he demanded. The older alien stepped closer. "We are mapping your body," he said, as if explaining to a child, "before the nectar can be taken, we must understand how much your frame can handle." The queen does not like waste. Daniel struggled against the straps, but they didn't even creak. His mind raced, searching for any weakness in the bindings. The younger alien woman, the one who had looked at him with worry earlier, appeared in the doorway, her gaze flicking from Daniel to the older alien. "This is too soon," she said quickly. "His body is still adjusting to the environment. Rushing could damage the yield." The older alien turned slowly toward her, his voice smooth but cold. "And if we wait, Her Majesty's patience will run thin. Is that what you want?" She hesitated, then stepped forward, holding a small device. "At least let me take the first scan." The older alien considered her for a moment, then nodded, stepping back. The metal arm with the needles retreated slightly. Daniel kept his eyes on her as she moved closer. She leaned down as if inspecting his restraints. But her lips barely moved as she whispered, "Don't fight now. There will be a time." Daniel blinked, almost certain he'd imagined it. She pressed the device to his chest, and a soft vibration ran through him. Lights flickered across its surface, projecting alien symbols into the air. The older alien watched the readings with interest. "He's perfect," the older one said finally. "We will proceed at dawn." The straps released, and the guards hauled Daniel to his feet. He felt his legs shaking, but forced himself to stand straight. He knew now that he had less than one day before they began whatever extraction this was. As they led him down another corridor, Daniel glanced over his shoulder. But the young alien doctor was already gone, her warning still ringing in his mind. The new room they brought him 2 was smaller, with a single bed and no windows. The walls pulsed faintly with light, like a slow heartbeat. A tray of food sat on a low table, bright green slices of fruit and a cup of steaming liquid. Daniel didn't touch it. His thoughts were too loud. Every detail of the chamber, every movement of the guards, every sound from outside, he tried to memorize them all, because if he didn't escape before dawn, the queen would get exactly what she wanted. And whatever this human male Nectar really was, he had the sickening feeling it would cost him far more than just his freedom. The faint light in Daniel's room shifted from soft gold to a pale blue, a silent signal that the night was over. He had not slept. Every sound outside his door kept him awake, the heavy footsteps of guards, the low hum of machines, the distant voices speaking in the queen's language. The door opened without a knock. 2 guards stepped in, their faces hidden under smooth black helmets. "Come," one of them said. His voice filtered through a metallic mask. Daniel didn't move at first, but the sight of their weapons made him step forward. His wrists were bound with a flexible metal band that tightened when he tried to pull away. They led him through a series of corridors, each one more silent than the last. The final door slid open with a hiss, revealing the same chamber from before, the one with the chair and the humming machines. But now the lights were brighter, and more equipment had been added: tanks of shimmering liquid, coils of silver tubing, and a panel displaying alien symbols that pulsed like a heartbeat. The older alien doctor stood waiting, his pale eyes fixed on Daniel. "Place him," he ordered. The guards pushed Daniel into the chair, the straps snapping closed over his arms and legs with a sharp click. He forced himself to stay still, his mind racing. The young female doctor was nowhere to be seen. The older alien leaned over him, his long fingers adjusting the position of a silver collar around Daniel's neck. "This will not hurt if you remain calm," he said. "Your body will respond naturally, and the nectar will flow." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Not happening," he muttered. The older alien ignored him and signaled to his assistants. The humming deepened. The metal arm descended again, but this time it ended not in needles, but in a smooth, cup-like device that glowed faintly from within. As it lowered toward his skin, Daniel twisted sharply, the straps biting into his wrists. "Get that thing away from me," he growled. One of the assistants reached for the control panel, and a low vibration began to run through the device, sending a strange, almost magnetic pull into Daniel's chest. It wasn't pain, but it made his muscles tense involuntarily. The hum grew stronger, his heartbeat matching its rhythm. He felt warmth spreading through his veins, a strange, dizzying sensation that made it harder to think. The older alien's voice was calm. "Yes, his body responds quickly." Daniel forced himself to focus, his mind latching onto a single thought: if he let them finish, they would win, and he would never leave this place alive. Without warning, he jerked his body sideways as hard as he could. The chair tilted just enough for the device to lose contact. A sharp alarm rang out. The older alien barked orders. The assistants rushed to steady the chair. Daniel twisted his wrists again, feeling the edge of the strap scrape against his skin. The metal band cut in, but the pressure weakened for a split second, just enough for him to wrench one hand free. Before they could react, he grabbed the glowing device and slammed it into the control panel. Sparks burst into the air. The hum stopped instantly. The room filled with the smell of burning wires. "Stop him!" the older alien shouted, but Daniel was already swinging his freed arm at the nearest assistant, knocking them backward into one of the tanks. The guards rushed forward, but the sudden chaos gave him the gap he needed. He shoved past them, the loose strap around his ankle snapping free with a loud pop. The door slid open as 2 more guards entered, but Daniel didn't hesitate. He ducked low, rolling between their legs, and sprinted down the corridor, alarms now screaming throughout the palace behind him. The older alien's voice echoed in fury. "Alive! Bring him back alive!" Daniel didn't know where he was going, only that he needed distance between himself and that chamber. His bare feet slapped against the cold floor, his breath coming fast. Every turn he took seemed to lead to another endless hallway, somewhere. Above, the Queen would already know her perfect prize was trying to escape, and she would send every soldier she had to hunt him down. Daniel's footsteps echoed in the long corridor. Alarms still screamed in the distance, but now there was another sound-heavy boots pounding the floor behind him. He glanced back and saw 3 guards closing in fast, their black armor glinting. In the flashing red lights, he turned a corner sharply, hoping to lose them, but the hallway ended in a sealed door. He pressed his hands against the smooth surface, searching for any kind of handle. There was none. The footsteps grew louder. Closer, his chest tightened. There was nowhere to go. Suddenly, the door slid open with a hiss. A hand shot out from the shadows, grabbed his wrist, and yanked him inside. The door shut again in an instant, muffling the sound of the guards rushing past outside. Daniel spun around, ready to fight, but stopped when he saw Hurt was the young alien doctor from before. Her silver eyes darted to the door, then back to him. "Quiet," she whispered. He took a breath, his voice low. "Why are you helping me?" "'Cause," she said quickly, "you don't understand what they will take from you. Once the process begins, it will never end." Her words sent a cold shiver down his spine. "What is this nectar, really?" She hesitated, then pulled a small, glowing cylinder from her pocket. "This," she said, holding it up, "is one drop from another human taken decades ago. It contains genetic patterns your body can make naturally. Patterns no other species can create. One drop can heal a dying body, make an infertile species fertile again, and extend a life for centuries." Daniel stared at the faint golden glow inside the cylinder. "And the Queen wants it all. She wants enough to trade. For armies, weapons, planets," the doctor said, her voice tense. "And she will take it until you are nothing but an empty shell." She turned to a wall panel and pressed her palm against it. A narrow passage opened, barely wide enough for them to walk side by side. "This leads outside the palace," she explained, "but it is dangerous. There are patrol drones, and if they catch us, they won't bring you back alive." Daniel followed her into the dark tunnel. The air was colder here. The sound of the alarms fading behind them as they moved, he asked, "Why help me at all?" "You work for her." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because my own brother was one of their sources. They drained him until he couldn't stand. And when he stopped producing nectar, they discarded him. I won't let that happen too. You." The tunnel curved sharply, ending in a grate that looked out over the palace gardens. Daniel could see tall alien plants glowing in soft blues and purples. Strange insect-like creatures hovered between the flowers. She began to remove the grate, but a sudden flash of light swept across the garden search drones. Moving in slow circles, their bright beams scanning the ground, Daniel pulled her back into the shadows. "If we go now, they'll see us. We don't have time," she replied, glancing behind them. "The Queen's Guard will search this tunnel soon." They waited for the drones to pass, but one stopped directly in front of the grate. Its red eye focusing, a faint mechanical click echoing in the air. Daniel's muscles tensed. He knew if it raised an alarm, the entire palace would descend on them without thinking. He grabbed the loose piece of metal from the grate and slammed it into the drone's lens. Sparks shot out. The machine spun wildly before crashing into the garden floor. The young doctor didn't waste a second. She pulled the grate open fully and motioned for him to follow. They slipped into the garden, keeping low behind the alien plants. In the distance, more drones began to move toward the crash site. Voices shouting in the alien language. The Queen's voice would not be far from learning where he was, but now, for the first time since his capture, Daniel felt the smallest spark of hope. They were outside the walls, and if they could reach the city beyond, Maybe he had a chance to disappear before the queen could claim him again. Asterisk, the city beyond the palace walls was nothing like Daniel expected. The streets glowed with streams of moving lights. Buildings curved upward like giant shells, and strange flying creatures carried goods between balconies. Every corner was alive with color and sound. The young alien doctor kept her hood low, guiding him through narrow alleys away from the main roads. "We have to find a ship before she locks the ports," she whispered. Daniel glanced back toward the palace, its towering spires still visible above the city, glowing like a beacon. "She's not going to give up," he said. "She won't," the doctor replied, "but she will change her approach." They stopped in the shadow of a tall structure with glass walls. Inside, a giant hologram flickered to life. Showing the queen herself, her voice carried across the city. "People of the realm. My prized human has been stolen from me. He is the last true source of nectar, and I will not allow him to be hidden." The hologram shifted, now showing Daniel's face. The image zooming in with unsettling clarity. "I offer his ownership to the highest bidder," the queen declared. "His nectar, his life, his service yours. If you can take him," Daniel's stomach sank. This wasn't just a search anymore. This was an open hunt. All around them, citizens paused to watch, whispers spreading quickly. Eyes flicking toward the alleys as if searching for him already. The doctor pulled him back into the shadows. "We have to move now," she said. But her voice carried a new urgency. Daniel followed, weaving through the crowd, trying to avoid the eyes that lingered too long. He could feel the tension in the air. The queen's words had turned the whole city into bounty hunters at one crossing. A group of tall reptilian merchants stopped talking and stared at him. One tilted his head, his forked tongue flicking. Daniel turned away quickly, but he knew they had recognized him. They hurried down another side street, but a loud voice called out in the alien tongue, and footsteps began to follow. The doctor grabbed his arm and pulled him into a small building. Filled with strange mechanical parts, the air smelled of oil and heated metal. An elderly alien mechanic looked up from his workbench, his many eyes narrowing. "I don't want trouble," the mechanic said slowly. "But I know what's walking into my shop." "We'll pay," the doctor replied. "Just help us reach the port." The mechanic shook his head. "The ports. Already under lockdown, she's sealing the city as we speak." Daniel cursed under his breath. "Then we're trapped." The mechanic's eyes moved between them, then to the hologram outside. "Not trapped," he said after a moment. "But you'll need a faster way than the streets." He tapped a panel on the wall, revealing a narrow vertical shaft with rungs. "Leads to the upper market, the sky lanes. Fewer eyes up there," before they could move. The sound of heavy boots pounded outside, shadows passing over the stays. Shadows passing over the state. "And life screws at mom, leaves alive. I life/lime sleeves, long-lasting color. Leads to the upper market/lies. Leads to the upper market, the sky lanes. My morrow/relies. My/lies at the/lies. My mize aside. My mize at laugh. By comely calf. Place it side. Go at all. By with obs. We sow cads at the slides unlied my size and sick it's assess it's so creak it's at the luts sick kid it dick I get boda gawk it's a sick cause a sick kids workshop windows. The queen's soldiers were sweeping the area. The doctor stepped into the shaft first, climbing quickly. Daniel followed, the mechanic closing the panel behind them. As they climbed higher, the noise below grew muffled. Replaced by the low hum of traffic above, Daniel felt the shaft opening into light. They emerged into a high walkway that overlooked the glowing city. Airships glided between tall towers, their engines whispering in the wind. The doctor pointed to a cluster of ships in the distance. "If we reach there, we might still get out." Daniel nodded, but deep down, he knew the queen's bidding war had just begun. And every hunter in the galaxy was now looking for him. Some might already be here, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to claim their prize. The wind on the high walkway was sharp, carrying the faint scent of metal and burning fuel. Daniel and the young doctor moved quickly, staying low as they crossed narrow bridges between towers. The glowing city stretched far below, alive with movement, but every shadow now felt like danger. Ahead, the cluster of ships came into view, their sleek bodies anchored to long metal arms. Workers in bright suits moved between them, loading supplies. The doctor's eyes lit with hope. "We can make it," she whispered. But then, from the corner of his eye, Daniel saw them 3 figures in black armor stepping out from behind a docking post, their weapons already raised. The Queen's personal hunters. The doctor froze, her breath catching. Daniel grabbed her arm and pulled her behind a stack of crates just as the first shot sizzled past, striking the metal floor and leaving a smoking mark. More footsteps came from the other side. They were surrounded. The Queen had known exactly where they would run. From across the walkway, a voice rose. Carried by the wind, Dit was the Queen herself, standing on the deck of a sleek golden airship hovering nearby. Her tall figure framed in light. "Enough games, human," she called. Her voice calm but cutting. "You will return to me, and your purpose will be fulfilled." Daniel's hands tightened into fists, his mind flashing to the image of the set, his mind flashing to the image of the chair, the straps, the cold voice of the older doctor, and the glowing cylinder of nectar. He looked at the young doctor, her face pale but defiant. "If she gets me, it never ends," he said quietly. She nodded, pulling something small from her robe, a tiny cube of metal, no bigger than a coin. "This is a disruptor," she whispered. "If placed in the main lab, it will burn every stored sample, every record, every formula. She'll never be able to make more." The Queen's hunters moved closer, their boots heavy against the walkway. Daniel's mind raced. The ship was only steps away. Escape was right there. But if he ran now, the Queen would still have what she had already taken from others. He looked at the doctor, and without another word, turned away from the escape route, running toward the opposite bridge that led back toward the palace spires. The Queen's voice rose in surprise. "He's coming to me," she said, almost amused. But Daniel wasn't coming to surrender. Blaster fire lit the air as he dodged between crates and jumped across the final gap to the palace wall, the doctor right behind him. They raced through a maintenance hatch, moving upward until the familiar hum of the lab's machines reached their ears. Inside, the older alien doctor looked up in shock. "Restrain him," he shouted, but Daniel was already moving, weaving between the guards. The young doctor sliding the cube into his hand at the last second. He reached the central console, slammed the cube onto it, and a deep, rising hum filled the room. Lights flickered. The machines began to spark. The older alien lunged forward, but the young doctor blocked him, shouting in her own language. The hum became a roar, and in a single burst of light, the lab systems overloaded, flames leaping across the panels, tanks of stored nectar boiling and bursting. The Queen's voice roared through the comms, full of fury, but it was too late. Everything she had worked for was gone. Daniel grabbed the doctor's hand, and they ran, the smell of smoke following them into the open air. In the distance, one of the smaller ships had broken free from its moorings, its engines glowing. They reached it just as more guards appeared. Daniel shoved the controls forward, the ship rising into the night sky, leaving the palace shrinking below. The city lights faded behind them, replaced by the endless black of space. Daniel sat back in the pilot's seat, breathless, the young doctor beside him, both knowing they had not just escaped, they had taken away the Queen's most powerful weapon for the first time since his capture. Daniel felt truly free. and in the quiet hum of the ship he knew that whatever lay ahead, at least his life would be his own again.